Hollywood shaken. Danny DeVito dragged off Jimmy Kimmel. Live after on-air meltdown, but not his. Hollywood is in shock after an explosive on-set confrontation between beloved actor Danny DeVito and late-night host Jimmy Kimmel turned a routine interview into an all-out media firestorm. What was supposed to be a charming, light-hearted appearance by DeVito on Jimmy Kimmel Live quickly spiraled into chaos, culminating in the iconic actor being forcibly escorted off the set in front of a stunned studio audience. Sources close to the production say the clash didn't start on camera. The tension had been simmering well before showtime. DeVito, in classic form, arrived early, cracking jokes, shaking hands, and brightening the studio with his trademark warmth. Danny was a total pro, said one lighting technician. He was friendly with everyone, knew people's names, asked about their families. Total class act. He was there to promote his new indie film, a gritty, award-buzzing project that had critics talking, and DeVito genuinely excited to share. But then Jimmy showed up. Kimmel walked in like a storm cloud, one production assistant recalled, snapping at crew, slamming his notes on the table, and when he finally met Danny, didn't even look him in the eye, according to multiple eyewitnesses. Kimmel was irritated about the segment lineup and dismissed DeVito as just another washed-up actor trying to be relevant. Then the cameras rolled, and it got worse. The crowd sensed something was off from the start. Kimmel's intro lacked any of his usual warmth. When DeVito bounded onto the stage, full of energy, Kimmel barely offered a handshake. What followed was a painfully awkward exchange that turned from uncomfortable to downright hostile. After a few cursory questions about the film, Kimmel veered into strange territory, questioning DeVito's longevity in the industry with a smug tone. You ever think it's time to step aside? Let the younger guys have a shot? The audience chuckled awkwardly, but DeVito, ever the professional, smiled and deflected. This business keeps you young, Jimmy. I'm just getting started. But Kimmel didn't let up. He pushed harder, jabbing at DeVito's early career, calling out roles as weirdos and losers, and dredging up a decades-old rumor about DeVito throwing tantrums on a sitcom set. DeVito, visibly taken aback, sat forward in his chair. His smile was gone. I've been in this game over 50 years, he said, his voice low and firm. I show up, do the work, and treat people right. Anyone who's worked with me knows that. The audience applauded, but Kimmel kept poking. Come on, Danny. You expect us to believe you've never lost it? Not once. And that's when it happened, with the entire room hanging on his every word. DeVito leaned in, eyes locked on Kimmel. I don't waste energy on drama, Jimmy. I save it for the performance. Maybe you should try that sometime. The crowd exploded. Cheers, applause, even a standing ovation from some in the back, but the control room was in chaos. Producers were signaling to cut, and security began moving toward the stage. Moments later, DeVito was escorted out. Calm, composed, but clearly done with the show. Since the incident, insiders have been speaking out. Several crew members anonymously shared that Kimmel has a history of souring on guests who don't play along with his on-air persona. If someone challenges his control, he takes it personally, one said. He doesn't like to be outshined. The internet has erupted. Social media is ablaze with clips of the confrontation, with hashtags like DeVito deserved better and Kimmel exposed, trending within hours. As of now, Jimmy Kimmel has declined to comment. But DeVito. He posted a single tweet later that night. Some things aren't worth yelling about, just worth walking away from. Dee Dee, stay tuned as we uncover more from those who witnessed it all. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that don't just break headlines. They break the mask. Dr. Danny DeVito, Jimmy Kimmel. Late night drama. Hollywood clash. Respect veterans. DeVito speaks. Kimmel backlash, more entertainment news. Here's a rewritten, dramatic, and tension-filled version of the scene, preserving the emotional beats but enhancing the narrative flow, tone, and pacing for maximum impact. Kimmel's smile didn't reach his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, clearly rattled but refusing to let it go. Wow. Okay, tough guy. He sneered, sarcasm dripping from every word. Guess you're just too perfect. For the rest of us, huh? The segment teetered on the edge. What had started as a standard interview was now a slow-burning standoff. Still composed, DeVito tried to steer things back to neutral ground, launching into a heartfelt story about working with a promising young director on his new film. But Kimmel cut him off mid-sentence. Yeah, that's great," he interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "But let's talk about something juicier. You and your wife, Rhea. Been together forever, right? What's the secret? Or do you guys just stay together for the cameras?" The question landed with a thud. It wasn't playful. It was pointed. The audience squirmed, picking up on the bitterness in Kimmel's tone. DeVito's jaw tightened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't snap. "I'll tell you what, Jimmy," he said, his voice low and steady. "Rhea and I have built a life together. We raised kids. We've made art. That's not a punchline. That's real. I'm here to talk about my work, not feed your tabloid fantasies." The rebuke hit like a hammer. The audience applauded, louder this time. The shift in the room was undeniable. Kimmel, thrown, let out a forced laugh. "Oh, relax, Danny. It's just a joke. You know, comedy. This is a comedy show." But no one was laughing. Off stage, a producer was frantically signaling to cut to commercial. The control room was in panic mode. The segment was spiraling. As the screen faded to black, the studio was a pressure cooker. DeVito sat silently, eyes fixed on the floor while his publicist whispered urgently in his ear. Across the stage, Kimmel huddled with his executive producer, face flushed, hands gesturing wildly. Crew members would later reveal the producer begged Kimmel to tone it down, warning him that he was skating into dangerous territory. But Kimmel was defiant. "I'm not letting DeVito run the show," he reportedly muttered. The audience, still buzzing, sensed the storm wasn't over. When the cameras came back, Kimmel plastered on a smile. But it was brittle, barely masking his agitation. DeVito, now upright and resolute, stared ahead with the calm resolve of a man who decided he wouldn't be bullied. Kimmel opened, with a limp joke about the weather, trying to reset the mood. The audience's response was tepid. He pivoted back to DeVito, and any hope of salvaging the moment vanished. "So, Danny," he said, the edge back in his voice. "You're a big-shot producer now, right? Always Sunny, all those projects. Ever get tired of playing the boss, ordering everyone around?" The jab was blatant, painting DeVito as some overbearing tyrant. But DeVito didn't flinch. "Producing is about collaboration, Jimmy," he replied evenly. "It's about building something together. I don't order people around. I work with people who share the vision." His calm response only seemed to provoke Kimmel further. "Sure, but you've got a reputation," Kimmel pressed, leaning in like a prosecutor. "People say you're intense, like you don't take no for an answer. That true?" The tension was thick. The audience could feel it in the air. DeVito's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm passionate, Jimmy. When you care about something, you fight for it. You'd know that. He paused. If you ever took a risk on anything original. The jab landed, a direct shot at Kimmel's formulaic paint-by-numbers late-night routine. The audience gasped, then erupted into cheers. Kimmel's smile dropped. "Oh, wow, okay," he said, voice tight. "So now you're the artist and I'm just some hack? That's rich, coming from a guy who's been milking the same sitcom for 20 years. It stung. For the first time, DeVito's composure faltered. "Always Sunny's still running because people love it," he snapped. "We take chances. We tell stories others won't touch." Kimmel's smile was tight, all teeth, no warmth. He leaned back in his chair, clearly shaken, but unwilling to cede ground. "Wow. Okay, tough guy," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Guess you're just too perfect for the rest of us, huh?" The air thickened. The segment was teetering. One wrong word from tipping into disaster. DeVito, still composed, tried to right the ship. He shifted gears, launching into a heartfelt story about collaborating with a young director on his latest film. But Kimmel, impatient and itching for control, cut him off mid-sentence. Yeah, that's great," he said, waving dismissively. "But let's talk about something a little juicier. You and your wife, Rhea. Been together forever, right? What's the secret? Or do you just stick it out for the cameras?" The jab was thinly veiled, cruel in its delivery. The audience stirred, uncomfortable now, sensing something darker in the host's tone. DeVito's jaw clenched. A flicker of emotion crossed his face. Not anger, but disappointment. He didn't raise his voice. "I'll tell you what, Jimmy," he said, voice low and deliberate. "Rhea and I built a life together. We raised children. We made art. That's not a punchline. It's real. I'm here to talk about the work, not to feed your tabloid fantasies." The clapback hit with surgical precision. The audience burst into applause, louder this time, more forceful. The power in the room had shifted. Kimmel, rattled, tried to backpedal with a brittle laugh. "Oh, relax, Danny. It's just a joke. You know, comedy. This is a comedy show." But the room wasn't laughing anymore. Offstage, producers scrambled. One frantically waved to cut to commercial. The segment was clearly spinning out of control. As the show faded to black, the set turned silent and tense. DeVito sat still, eyes fixed on the floor, his publicist whispering urgently in his ear. Across the stage, Kimmel huddled with his executive producer, red-faced and gesturing wildly. Crew members would later say the producer begged Kimmel to tone it down. "You're pushing this too far," they warned. "You're about to torch the whole segment." But Kimmel, visibly defiant, brushed it off. "I'm not letting DeVito hijack my show," he muttered. The audience, still buzzing from the exchange, could feel it. The storm wasn't over. When the cameras came back on, Kimmel forced a smile, but it was brittle, cracking at the edges. DeVito, now upright and stoic, looked calm, but his posture said everything. He wasn't backing down. Kimmel tried to reset the mood with a bland joke about the weather. It landed with a thud. The audience barely responded. Then, almost instinctively, he pivoted back. To DeVito, to the tension, to the fire. "So, Danny," Kimmel began, his voice laced with mock cheer. "You're a big-shot producer now, huh? Always Sunny, all those projects. Ever get tired of playing the boss? Ordering people around?" The dig was obvious and desperate. It painted DeVito as some overbearing egomaniac. But DeVito didn't flinch. "Producing is about collaboration, Jimmy," he said evenly. "It's about building something with people who believe in the vision. I don't order anyone around. I work with people who care. The calm only seemed to provoke Kimmel more. Sure, he said, leaning in like a prosecutor. But you've got a reputation, right? People say you're, let's call it intense, like you don't take no for an answer. That true? The audience shifted again. They could feel the aggression creeping back in. DeVito's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice stayed cool. I'm passionate, Jimmy. When something matters, I fight for it. You'd know what that's like, if you ever took a risk on something original. Boom. The crowd gasped, then cheered, a subtle but brutal swipe at Kimmel's formulaic late-night routine. Kimmel's smile disappeared. Oh, wow. Okay, he snapped, voice tightening. So now you're the artist and I'm just some hack? That's rich, coming from a guy who's been milking the same sitcom for 20 years. For the first time, DeVito's composure wavered. Always Sunny is still running because people love it. He fired back. We take chances. We tell stories. Other shows are too scared to touch. What's the last thing you did that actually scared you, Jimmy? DeVito asked, his voice deceptively calm. Besides bombing in front of your own audience, the studio exploded. Part laughter, part shocked gasps. Applause rippled through the crowd while others exchanged uneasy glances. Kimmel's face flushed crimson. His fingers clenched around the edge of the desk like it was the only thing anchoring him. Offstage, the producer was now visibly panicked, urgently signaling to cut to commercial. But Kimmel wasn't done. You know what, Danny? He snapped, venom finally spilling over. I don't need lectures from you. I've been running this show for years, dealing with egos way bigger than yours. You think you're untouchable just because you're some Hollywood legend? Newsflash! He leaned forward, eyes blazing. Legends fade. The crowd went dead silent. DeVito leaned in slowly, his small frame radiating a quiet, powerful intensity. I don't think I'm untouchable, Jimmy. I think I deserve respect, same as anyone who sits in that chair. You're the one acting like you're above it all, Kimmel scoffed, rolling his eyes. Respect? He sneered. You want respect? Try not sending a list of diva demands before you even show up. Don't ask this, don't mention that. What are you hiding, Danny? It was a low blow, a thinly veiled accusation of cowardice. DeVito's jaw clenched, but his voice never wavered. My team works with your producers to make a good show. That's called professionalism. If you've got a problem, take it up. With them, not me. Kimmel stood his ground, his voice rising. Oh, I'm taking it up with you. Right now. This is my stage, my rules. You don't get to waltz in here and act like you're doing me a favor. You could cut the tension with a knife. The audience sat frozen, the energy in the room no longer amusement, but dread. DeVito stared at him, unblinking. I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of, he said quietly, each word measured. If you're not interested, maybe I should find a host who is. The threat hung in the air. For a moment, it looked like he might walk off. The producer sprinted into frame, signaling frantically. The feed cut to commercial just as Kimmel opened his mouth for a retort. Backstage chaos. DeVito's team debated pulling him from the segment, altogether. But he remained seated, eyes calm, motionless. I'm not running, he reportedly told his publicist, his voice quiet but resolute. Across the studio, Kimmel paced furiously. His producer begged him to apologize or change course. Anything to defuse the disaster. He's not going to make me look like the bad guy. Kimmel snapped loud enough for crew to hear. The stage manager later recalled. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. When the show returned, the tension was thick, suffocating. Gone was the laughter. In its place, nervous silence. Kimmel didn't bother with pleasantries. He leaned in, eyes locked on DeVito like a man with something to prove. "All right, Danny," he said, voice sharp. "Let's cut the crap. You act like you're above it all, but let's talk about the real you." He paused, then delivered the bomb. "What's with the shady business deals? Word is you've got a habit of screwing over your partners." The studio gasped. The accusation came from nowhere. Raw, unfiltered. DeVito didn't flinch. "That's a serious accusation, Jimmy," he said, his tone icily calm. "You got any proof? Or are you just flinging mud and hoping something sticks?" For the first time, Kimmel faltered. A beat too long. His smirk twitched. "I'm just saying what people are saying," he muttered, suddenly on his back foot. "You've been around forever. You can't tell me there's no dirt." DeVito leaned forward, voice low but loaded with fire. "People say a lot of things, Jimmy. Doesn't make them true. I've built a career on trust, not betrayal. You want to talk dirt? Look in your own backyard," the audience erupted. Applause, whistles. A few even stood. The momentum had swung. Kimmel's face twisted with rage. "Oh, that's cute," he growled. "You're going to lecture me on trust? With your whole lovable Danny act? Please. Everyone in this town knows it's just that. An act." The final jab was personal. Too personal. DeVito stood, slowly. His small frame suddenly felt 10 feet tall. "I've had enough, Jimmy." His voice boomed, not loud but commanding. Final. "I came here to talk about my work, not to be your punching bag. You want to play dirty, that's your choice, but don't cry when it blows back in your face." Kimmel laughed, but it was hollow. The swagger was gone. "Cracking already? What's the matter? Gonna storm off?" Kimmel taunted, his voice laced with mockery. "Typical. Can't handle a real conversation." DeVito didn't flinch. "A conversation goes both ways, Jimmy. What you're doing is a tantrum. I'm done." He turned toward the wings, and the audience erupted, cheering, clapping, chanting, "Danny! Danny!" Like he'd just landed the knockout punch. Kimmel, now visibly rattled, shot up from his chair, yelling over the noise. "Yeah, go ahead. Run. That's what you do when it gets tough, right?" DeVito stopped, turned slowly, eyes burning. "You think I'm running?" he said, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut through steel. "I'm walking away because I've got better things to do than stroke your ego. You're not a host, Jimmy. You're a bully who forgot how to do his job." The words hit like a hammer. Kimmel's face went pale. The producer rushed on stage, waving frantically, but Kimmel shoved past him. "You don't get to talk to me like that," he barked, his voice cracking. "This is my show." DeVito took a deliberate step closer. "Then act like it, and stop embarrassing yourself." The audience was on its feet, some cheering wildly, others stunned into breathless silence. The director, realizing the segment was beyond salvage, cut to commercial just as the camera caught Kimmel's stricken face and DeVito's cold stare. Backstage, chaos erupted. Security appeared almost instantly, reportedly at Kimmel's request, to escort DeVito out. "You need to come with us," one of them said. DeVito held up a hand. "I'm leaving. On my terms," he replied, calm but firm. The guards hesitated, unsure how to proceed. DeVito's team was already circling him, ready for a fight if needed. The hallway buzzed with tension, stagehands and crew stepping aside, some whispering words of support as he passed. Kimmel stormed after them, his tie askew, face flushed with fury and desperation. "Danny, hold up," he called, voice echoing. "You don't just walk out like that." DeVito didn't slow down, but his publicist turned and shot Kimmel a glare that said back off. The head of security stepped in. "Mr. DeVito, we need you to wait. Jimmy wants to talk this out." DeVito turned to face the guard, his small frame somehow commanding the entire corridor. "Talk's over," he said, each word weighed and deliberate. "Unless you plan to physically stop me, I'm leaving. Your call." The guard glanced at Kimmel, then at the panicked producer, who was frantically shaking his head. After a long "Beat!" the guard stepped aside. DeVito kept walking. Still unwilling to let go, Kimmel called after him again, this time with a forced calm. "Come on, Danny. Don't be like this. It's just TV. We got heated, it happens. Let's shake hands, move on." DeVito paused at the exit, hand on the door, and turned one last time. "Jimmy, you still don't get it," he said. "This wasn't just heat. It was disrespect. To me, your audience, and your own crew. That's not television. That's you failing at your job." Kimmel's veneer cracked completely. "Failing!" he sputtered, voice rising again. "I've been doing this for decades. You think you can walk in here and lecture me because you've done a few movies?" DeVito didn't blink. "I think I can call out crap when I see it," he said. "You had a chance to do something real tonight, to have a conversation. You turned it into a circus. That's on you." With that, he pushed through the exit, doors, his team following behind him, leaving Kimmel standing in the hallway, speechless for the first time all night. The fallout was instant. Clips of the confrontation hit social media like a tidal wave, racking up millions of views before the episode even finished airing. Hashtags like John Kimmel Unraveled and Upper Team Danny trended worldwide. Crew members, emboldened by DeVito's public stand, began leaking stories about Kimmel's off-camera behavior, berating staff, dismissing guest boundaries, throwing fits when challenged. One anonymous writer claimed Kimmel had a playbook for breaking down guests who didn't play along. He tried it on DeVito and failed spectacularly. By morning, the network was in full damage control. A vague statement cited scheduling adjustments and announced a brief hiatus for Jimmy Kimmel Live. But insiders said executives were livid, some even pushing for a suspension. DeVito, meanwhile, rose above it all. His team issued a simple statement. Danny appreciates the support and remains focused on his upcoming projects. When pressed for comment, DeVito said only, "I said what I needed to say." Then, without fanfare, he resumed his press tour. The industry took notice. Publicists began blacklisting Kimmel's show, unwilling to risk clients becoming the next target. Ratings plummeted when the show returned. Viewers turned off by what they now saw as Kimmel's mean streak. And in Hollywood, a new phrase was born, pulling a DeVito, standing up to a bully with dignity and grit. For fans, it was a reminder of why they loved Danny DeVito, not just for his talent, but for his integrity in a town that often rewards the opposite. Kimmel tried to spin it, posting a half-hearted apology that blamed miscommunication and passionate discussion. It backfired. The comments were flooded with praise for DeVito and scorn for Kimmel's deflection. The mask was off, and no amount of PR could hide the cracks in Jimmy Kimmel's carefully crafted image. Want more wild, unfiltered Hollywood drama? Drop your thoughts below, smash that subscribe button, and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming next.